Anime versus, pitting two shows against each other, weighing up their strengths and weaknesses, and seeing which comes out on top. In the red corner with 2 movies and a 10-volume manga, it's Barefoot again. In the blue corner with only 1 movie, Grave of the Fireflies. Now these 2 movies are really commonly compared. It's not really hard to see why. They're both World War II dramas from the perspective of young boys, and you kind of know what you're in for when starting each of these, seeing how one starts in 1945 Hiroshima and the other starts with a half-dead child. Good times. Despite their similarities, they're very different shows. But first, Barefoot again. The 1973 manga by Keiji Nakawa is somewhat of an autobiography based on his real-life events surviving the Hiroshima bomb. We're introduced to Gen and his family, a young plucky boy with his younger brother, older sister and parents, as they join together to try and overcome the struggles of war, such as rationing, air raids, and his father trying to run a business whilst most men are being sent off to war. However, these initial happy family moments are all just getting you to know the characters, getting you to care about them. Before the inevitable bomb drops, the initial movie covers the life of Gen in the first half, and then goes on to him dealing with the events of the bomb itself, as he sees people dying around him, the little he can do to help anybody. The initial movie, which is what I'll mainly be talking about, ends shortly after the initial carnage, whereas the second movie is set quite some time later as people are starting to rebuild. Where the war has ended, Gen is trying to find a new life, going to his rundown school, helping orphans. It's not nearly as sad and depressing as the original movie, however it's still not a happy experience in the least. Barefoot again has become renowned. There was even a recent act which put copies of Barefoot again into schools for the sake of educating the Japanese masses. While in the West it's quite well known, it was shown a lot during anti-nuclear weapon activist movements, so even outside of Japan it's become quite well known. Well, many just recognise the scenes from the movie itself. On the other hand, we have Grave of the Fireflies. The 1988 Ghibli movie by Isao Takahata follows the tale of 2 orphan children as they try to survive during war times. It's a depressing tale of the terror caused by war on normal civilians. And it's an interesting take seeing this from the losing side, as when it comes to war shows, usually they're a tale of the American or European battles and the English, French and American victories, usually tales of overcoming adversity. However, in this case, from the Japanese view, it was a terrible loss. Terrible crimes were committed. The lives of the Japanese people were devastated by World War II. It's become a huge part of the culture, which is why these 2 movies in particular are very important. They both have very simple ideals and a very solid plot. Well known for being one of the most powerful Studio Ghibli movies, Grave of the Fireflies has great cinematography. By starting on the main character as he's half dead, you know where this movie's going, and it's kind of an emotional journey, perfectly controlled towards that end, as you deal with the hardships of the children and you feel their pain. It's a movie made to make you cry. It's a movie made to make you realise that war affects more than just soldiers, but nobody is safe from terrors. The characters in this movie are very well written. They each fulfil a very clear role, and it doesn't focus on the war too much, but rather chooses to cover other aspects. As a movie and as in terms of direction, it's almost a masterpiece. Child characters are really believable, with great voice acting and drama in it. Barefoot again is not as neat of a film. It's pretty much a disaster movie at its core. The cinematography is a lot messier, the pacing is off. You have the first half of the movie which is kind of a slice of life comedy, which doesn't have the best writing. Then you move into the second half of the movie as it becomes a disaster and an onslaught of emotion. Whereas in Grave of the Fireflies, they kind of carefully control what emotions you feel when, and try and move you through the stages. Barefoot again kind of hits you with everything at once. It's an overwhelming movie. It kind of wants you to feel what you feel yourself watching the terrors on screen. And this is where the main difference in the 2 movies comes in. Whereas Grave of the Fireflies is a movie to pull at your heartstrings and make you think more deeply about war, Barefoot again is pure truth and pure terror. It's trying to frighten you, it's trying to scare you. You get to experience this horrible, horrible event from the eyes of a child and feel the fear they had, seeing everybody dying around them constantly, unable to save their family, unable to help anyone. The sloppiness and the drastic change between the first half and the second half of the movie are this film's strength. You really feel for the characters, they seem sincere, they seem like actual people. And whereas Grave of the Fireflies kind of works me up to crying at the end of the movie, There's many times through Barefoot Gen where I'd burst into tears because of just how disgusting and how terrible everything happening was. It was almost unbearable. It was a terribly frightening movie compared to being a terribly sad movie. In this aspect, they each have their own significant strengths and weaknesses. On to visuals, Barefoot Gen isn't the most appealing visually. The 1983 film does carry the style of the 70s manga. It isn't too high budget. It does look fine, however, and it especially shines during such scenes as when the atomic bomb hits and certain pictures after create a drastic scenery, almost like a painting. On the other hand, Grave of the Fireflies is a much prettier film. Studio Ghibli were quite successful around the time it came out, so they had the budget and the time to make it as visually stunning as it is. There's certain scenes which particularly strike out, and the artistic direction on some of them, just be it through the lighting or the movement of the characters, is really impressive. Music wise, Barefoot Gen also fails a bit here. The music in that is fine, however it's not going to be a memorable soundtrack which you could listen to numerous times. It's more setting the tone. It's very raw, emotional music compared to the Grave of the Fireflies soundtrack, which is a lot smoother, closer to the well-known Studio Ghibli soundtracks, meant to control your emotions and work you up throughout the whole movie. Onto the characters, Gen and his family are very likeable. They come across as actual people, which you would expect when the author based it off his own family. They're very lovable, they're all really nice characters. You do get the aspect that they are a real family, and that the other characters would be their neighbours, would be locals that they would know and help out. There aren't any bad people, everyone's really distraught and out to try and help whoever they can, or try and help themselves as they can't deal with what's happening around them. Whereas in Grave of the Fireflies, the two main characters are the perfect children. They're very likeable, but they're not the most realistic portrayal. And a lot of the other characters in the movie seem to be pure villains, purely there to take advantage of one another. It doesn't have the community spirit that Barefoot Gen has. It's more of a cynical look on Japan during this time period. When looking at them both, they're great, even excellent movies in their own right. However, overall, Grave of the Fireflies does stand as a better movie, but in the same sense, Barefoot Gen is more of an experience. Grave of the Fireflies beats it out in its soundtrack, its visuals, its pacing. It's very well put together compared to the sloppiness of Barefoot Gen. It's lower budget, so Grave of the Fireflies is more of a movie for general watching. Barefoot Gen is there to shock you. It's filled with the writer's raw emotions. It's an excellent piece of history. It should be seen at least once by everybody. However, as much as I love that movie, it's not something I could watch a lot. Honestly, I do probably prefer it to Grave of the Fireflies, but as far as movies go, it kind of falls to it in this point. The winner, Grave of the Fireflies. This was Zestin Otaku, and that was Anime Versus. Feel free to check out my other videos, from a series of anime reviews, including Your Name and Mobile Suit Gundam, to my general looks on the industry itself. So, until next time.